Let's pivot now because our next guest is taking advantage of empty apartment spaces by making them into pop-up hotels. We're joined now by Bao Vuong, WhyHotel's co-founder and president. First, explain to us exactly how WhyHotel works. I know it's taking advantage of recently built luxury apartments, but just give us all a synopsis on how the system works.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to talk about our business. WhyHotel is a hospitality platform and operator that makes real estate more flexible and efficient by blurring the line between hotels and apartment buildings. So when you build a new 400 unit high rise, it takes anywhere from a year or two to fill it up, fill the vacancy with residents. And so we take about 100 of those vacant units, we fully furnish them, and we operate a quote unquote pop-up hotel out of them, out of those units. Our guests get to stay in brand new buildings in upcoming neighborhood that allows them to travel as if they live there, right? Access to local restaurants, and they get to keep their routines, right? It's a true home. They can wash their clothes. We have full kitchens and gyms, and it's all professionally managed. And for building owners, they get some publicity. They also get immediate building activation. And of course, they're generating revenue from otherwise empty units. It's really a win-win for everybody.
So it sounds a little bit like you're doing like an Airbnb type model, because we know while Airbnb started out with people renting out their own residences, we do know that now it's become a business model for them. People are buying properties with the expressed idea of then renting them out on an Airbnb. Do you see them as competition to WhyHotel?
Look, obviously, we go after the same, potentially some of the same set of guests and customers, but our business operates, and we list on Airbnb. So really, Airbnb for us is really a channel that we get our guests from. But from an overall perspective, our business model is pretty different from a typical Airbnb. Number one, we're professionally managed. Number two is that we have the scale and inventory like a hotel does, and it's professionally managed. So when a business traveler comes in, week out, they know that they can book with us and that we always have a room, versus a one-off basis on an Airbnb where, hey, you may have it one week, you may have to stay in a different place the next week, may have to stay in another place in another week. And these are all brand new apartments. And so from that perspective, yes, Airbnb stock is, somewhat of a competitive set, but really we look at them more as a partner.
So I'm curious to know, just kind of piggybacking off of that Airbnb model a little bit. I know that you're putting up these hotels, these pop-up hotels in newly built apartment buildings that, are not yet occupied. But as we saw throughout the pandemic, at least here in New York City, so many people abandoned their apartments. And I just know anecdotally of a lot of apartments where there are so many empty units still. Is that an area that you guys would be able to take advantage of or to push into at all to create pop-up hotels in some of these hotels where their occupancy has seriously dropped?
Yeah, I mean, generally we focus on brand new apartment buildings because we go through a full regulatory and governmental approval process, and we do physical building changes and upgrades to make sure that our building and our operations runs like a hotel. It's very difficult to retrofit older buildings and to get regulatory approval to operate hotels in existing apartment buildings. So that's the reason, and that's why the focus is on brand new buildings, is that these apartments would otherwise be empty, not used for residents. I think certain jurisdictions and certain markets do allow for that, and we are looking at going into some existing apartment buildings where the regulatory environment allows for that.
Well, if you're relying on brand new buildings, I'd imagine you look closely at what home construction looks like. What's the outlook right now? I mean, we're seeing that prices for raw materials are going up. It's getting harder to build some of these complexes, especially multi-family dwellings like you're dealing with. So what are you seeing in terms of the outlook for that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, as you look at the multifamily market, traditionally it lags a couple of years because once you start a multifamily building, even in the midst of the pandemic, and even if there's increasing vacancies, you got to finish the building, right? The building's fully financed, and so you want to do that. The great thing about our model is that if the market does slow down on the multifamily side and there are more vacancies in units, that's what's great about our model is that we're there to help supplement vacancy, right? So we're generating income from those units that would otherwise be empty. And so that means that we get to last in the buildings longer. So generally, as the building fills up with long-term residents, we eventually move on to the next project. And so if buildings stay vacant longer, we just get to be in the building for longer and run our operations.
Where are you seeing, what cities or perhaps what states are you seeing the most new construction right now? I know there's tons of new buildings in Brooklyn. Is that true as well for other cities like Miami or Atlanta, LA?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a tremendous amount of growth across the entire country, quite frankly, in real estate construction. We've had a particular focus in the Southeast, going through the Sun Belt, and I think that the regulatory environment's more friendly for our type of operations in those cities, and so yeah, we're really excited about that. We're really excited to come out of the pandemic. We have seen quite a bit of demand, especially on leisure travelers and people looking to, now that the vaccine's readily available, to get out of their homes and to get out of being stuck in their, in what they've been in for the past year. So, and we've opened a hotel down in Miami about a month ago, and it's doing extremely well.
All right, WhyHotel Co-Founder and President Bao Vuong, thanks so much for joining us today.